This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you all for joining. Okay, we'll start with a recap for the first couple of minutes. So last week was week 1, right? And we had 2 days of session. And during the 2 days of session, we discussed about generic cloud. We talked about, we started with the definition of cloud, and we discussed what are the high-level benefits of cloud. And then we started discussing some of the advantages that we get around cloud. And we moved on to discuss the 3 different model within the cloud when it comes to service model. And we also discussed about the 4 different options of deployment model. We discussed about the characteristics around cloud, and we ended up the day 1 session with discussing the cloud demerits, right? And also we had a couple of slides which talks about the current market trend of cloud, and then what is the adoption rate and so on. And on day 2, last Sunday, we discussed about why we need to choose Azure when there are multiple public cloud providers. What are the benefits that we get when we go and choose Microsoft Azure as a cloud provider? And we discussed about there was a classic model called Azure Service Management. We compared the 2 deployment models, ASM and ARM. We discussed about the 5 different support plan options that we have when you go and create a subscription with Azure. And we saw step-by-step instructions on how to create a new Azure account. And at the end, we talked about the different hierarchy when you go and create any resources like virtual machines or storage or virtual network. What are the different hierarchy we need to follow when it comes to resource creation in Azure platform? So we'll discuss more and more around this even today and in the upcoming sessions. And we talked about Azure geographical presence. So we started with discussing what are the different options that we have on a very high level. Okay, maybe today's first few minutes, we'll again have a quick recap around Azure hierarchy and Azure geographical presence. Then we will move on to the compute session. Okay, so that's the plan for today. Okay, let me do a quick recap of Azure hierarchy and Azure geographical presence. Then let's move on. Okay, the very first element that we have to have in Azure platform is the subscription. Okay, subscription is what is a logical boundary for a specific customer. Okay, when you are a new customer to Azure platform, the very first thing you need to create before creating any resources is Azure subscription. See, if you just log into the Azure portal, okay, so you cannot create any resource without your active subscription. Just for an example, if you want to create a virtual machine or anything in Azure platform, the very basic thing or mandatory thing is subscription. Okay, subscription is a mandatory thing. Without that, without selecting a proper subscription, you cannot create any resources. So in order to create that, we saw like what are the options to go and create it. And subscription is the logical boundary between different customers. So it is a multi-tenant solution, right? Azure is a public cloud offering where multiple tenants are creating resources. In order to differentiate, in order to have isolation between customers, we go and create a subscription first. And subscription can also be used as a billing boundary. So that's what we saw, right? So subscription can be used as a billing boundary, and it can be used as a resource boundary where we can create resources for different environment like development, QA, test, production, and so on. And if you want to create subscription for specific sub companies or different business unit or different project, you can go and create it as a separate billing boundary. And if you have customers for example, like there are very large customers where we'll have regional management team or we'll have multiple support locations supporting the platform for them or supporting the IT landscape for them. In such cases, we can also create multiple subscription and give relevant access to this separate support groups. Okay, you can also use subscriptions as a security boundary to restrict access to specific people. For example, if you want to have some confidential data or if you want to run some confidential application, you can also go and create a separate subscription for that. In some customer environment, even they go and create a separate subscription to store all the logs coming out of all the different accounts and resources so that they can do some auditing or security analysis at a later time. So subscriptions can be created for various purpose, like the primary use cases are for having separate billing for separate consumption, and to isolate the resources based on their environment or based on their business unit or based on the project or based on the application. And it can also be segregated based on the management boundary. Okay, so this is on a very high level. Okay, you can also go and assign quotas for each of your subscription. When I say quota, you can go and set some budget, how much you can spend, or if there is a kind of specific uh, specific consumption that you reach. For example, if you're reaching $20,000 or $10,000 in a particular month, you can also set an alarm, or you can set a alert for that particular subscription. So you can stay within the budget of that particular application. So each subscription can be subjected to budgets and quota, and subscription can also be um, limited for specific use cases. Okay, so subscription is a logical boundary. Okay, it is not something which you will regularly create. You will create subscription initially based on your landing zone setup, or initially based on your architecture. But we'll get to discuss this more and more. And the very next thing is management group. The management group is above the subscription. But what I told, or what I shared last week, is management group is only needed when you have multiple subscription. So if you are having only 2 or 3 subscriptions, you can manage it as a standalone subscription. But if you have hundreds and thousands of subscription in very large organization, you might end up having thousands of subscription. In such cases, the management, the governance, the control becomes very difficult. Okay, so in order to have a better governance, better administration, or better security policy enforcement, you can go and get them grouped together in a concept called management group. This is purely from management aspect. So you can have a common policy that can be enforced across all the subscription. For example, let's assume a use case. See, if you have regional IT support team, each and every regional support team will have their own choice of operating system. They will have their own choice of databases, and they will have their own choice of choosing resources for their use cases. See, if you don't control at a larger level, at a kind of organization level, by restricting them to create a specific instance size or a specific operating system or a specific database, the technology is very huge. Okay, so they can go and choose a different version of database, a different flavor of database. And at a later stage, if you are going and offshoring the IT support, it will become very difficult. Even if you want to have a centralized IT support team at a later time, it will become very, very difficult because of the technology proliferation. So technology can be chosen by different management group. So in order to avoid such challenges at a later time, what you can do is you can use this management group to enforce policies, best practices, standards, and so on. So I'll guide you. I'll help you with a demo on that. No worries. Like for now, just try to understand these things at a logical or a theoretical level, and then later you'll get to understand how you can create all these things and how you can enforce best practices and so on. Okay, so you can have management group and a management group. For example, if you have Asia management group for an example, and within that you can have India locations management group. For example, you can have Philippines management group, and so on. So you can have management groups up to 6 levels of depth. So when I say 6 levels of depth, level one, level two, level three, level four, and you can have up to 6 levels of depth. See, it's not that you cannot go beyond multiple levels. So it's a kind of best practice to limit yourself with certain levels of depth when you go and create such hierarchy. See, the hierarchy can get complicated when you go and create more levels of depth, and even managing those will become a very cumbersome thing. So always limit the hierarchy to certain extent, like 4 or 5. So Microsoft recommends to create up to 6 levels of depth, but 6 levels of depth is not a good thing. I mean, if you're going to hit the maximum, then it will be very challenging. See, even you can create up to 10,000 management group in a single customer directory environment. I'll come to what exactly is directory when it comes to Azure Active Directory and the tenant. But for now, so just look at the numbers. So you can go up to 6 levels of depth. Okay, level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on. And similarly, you can have up to 10,000 management groups. So there are limits that are associated to everything that you create within Azure platform. So the number of virtual machines you create, the number of network interfaces you create, number of public IP address you purchase. So all of them have 2 levels of limit. One is a soft limit and the other one is a hard limit. So when it comes to Azure, okay, there are 4 levels of hierarchy that you need to understand. The higher level is management group, and within that you have subscriptions, and within that you have the resource group, and you have the resources. Okay, so I'll show you how to utilize them. For now, okay, if you go to your Azure portal, after you have created a free tier account, you can go and search for subscriptions. Okay, so this particular search bar on the top, it is not only searching you the Azure services, you can also search resources, you can also search any documentations from online portal. So it is not just the resources within Azure platform. You can go and search for resources, you can go and search the services, and even you can search any documentations from online portal. So now I'm just going to search the subscriptions here. And if I go here, it has got one free tier subscription. So this is what everyone will have if you have created an account already. But if you have not created it, you can create it maybe at a later point of time. Maybe we are heading towards Diwali time, right? So if you are creating it now, so you might waste a couple of days during the festival time. So maybe you can create it after. Yeah, I mean, you are settled down with your festival and they plan with family, so that you get 30 days of free trial, and this 30 days of free trial can be extended to 1 year. I've explained those things in day 2 class, right? What are the services which can be accessed for free for 12 months, and what are the services which are always free? So all those things I have explained. Maybe you can again go through that at a later time when you have some time. So azure.microsoft.com/free. If you go to this site, you will have the complete list of services. For the first month, it is fully free of cost. But after the first month, so there are certain services or there are certain limits you can create for free of cost. So for example, if you're creating B1S virtual machine, either Linux or Windows, you can run it for 750 hours for a month without any additional cost. Similarly, if you are creating Azure SQL databases, you can create up to 250 gigabytes of storage for 12 months. So these are all some services which you can consume for 12 months, and there are some services which you can consume for always free. So if you look at the full list here, you can get to understand the complete list of services which are always free. For example, if you are playing around Azure Kubernetes services, it is free of cost. You don't have to worry about it. And if you are creating Azure file shares, you can create it for free for 12 months, but there is a hard limit of 100 GB. If you're going beyond 100 GB and storing more files, then that is when you will be charged during the first 12 months. Okay, so it is very much similar to AWS platform, but you get additional advantages when you're practicing Azure. The reason I say that, when you go and create a free trial account, the very first month you will get 14,500 credit, which is equivalent to 200 US dollars, right? So this amount you can use it for creating any free services, or sorry, any services. It need not be free services. You can go and create any resources that you want in Azure platform for the very first month, for the first 30 days, without worrying about the limits and all those things. Okay, you don't have to worry about the always free tier category or 12 months category. The first month you can go and create any resources, and you can consume that 14,500 rupees which you have got in your Azure account. Okay, so now let's jump into the virtual machines. Okay, so this is one of the core services as part of your compute, right? When it comes to core services, there are uh, multiple categories, but the core infrastructure categories are compute, network, and storage, right? The Active Directory and all those identity and other services, they're also core, But when it comes to infrastructure aspect, compute, network, and storage are the three core infrastructure elements, and we are starting with compute today. Okay, and as part of the compute, we will be first discussing around virtual machines, and we'll be discussing around the other services as we move forward. Okay, so let's see how to go and how to go and create a virtual machine in Azure compute offering. So if you go here, you can just go and select virtual machines in this list, or if you're not seeing it here, what you can do is you can go to all services and you can go and search for what is the services that you're looking for. If you are looking for virtual machines, you can go and get them added as a favorite. Whichever services you want, you are frequently accessing, okay, you can go and search for those services. You can go and search for the resources. Okay, you can go and search for resources and you can just select this as a favorite plan. For example, if you're a person who is working for FinOps team, you can go and select this savings plan, and automatically this savings plan will get listed as a favorite at the bottom here. You can just move this based on whatever things that you want to have it first, next, and so on. Okay, so Mauli has asked to give an example of management group. Okay, let me see. See, for management group, if you want to create a management group, you have to go and search for management group here. And this is not a mandatory component for all the customers. So only when you have multiple subscriptions, which is out of your management level, or when I say like management boundary, so you have hundreds of subscription. So you cannot apply policies, or if you cannot apply enforcement one by one, or you cannot go and do it manually on each of the subscription. So if you want to control the policy, access, compliance, and all those things across multiple subscription, that is when you go and create a management group. So you can go and create a management group by selecting this option. It will go and create a default top level management group, and we can just it's like a OU structure. I mean that is a good analogy to compare, Mauli. Yeah, so management risk similar to your organizational unit in AWS or in Active Directory. You can compare that analogy here. So you can create a management group ID. For example, I can say this is my skill up with Stan management group, and I can just give something as a display name. So it says you cannot have spaces, or you cannot have any specific gaps in between. So whatever display name you want to have, you can have all those stuffs there. So let's go and create a management group ID here, and let's see. Yeah, it has accepted it, and I can just create it. So within this management group, you can go and categorize or group the different subscription within that. So in this example, if you see here, so these are all management groups. If you want to have a separate management group for HR, because HR will have a lot of confidential information about the employees, their policies, their framework, and so on. So if you want to have a separate management group for HR related subscriptions and application, you can go and create a separate management group. Similarly, you can have a separate management group for your marketing and finance, where you have another set of confidential information. So you can have multiple management groups like this, and you can have multiple subscription under that. For example, for different environments like development and testing, or for free trial, or for enterprise agreement, you can have multiple subscriptions within a particular management group. Okay. So let this management, okay, it's already created now. So if you look at here, it has created a default tenant root management group, under which you have the free trial subscription. And if you want to just have this free trial subscription move to your specific management group, you can also do that. You can do this. So last week, I think someone asked this question, whether I can move a particular subscription from one management group to another management group. So this is how you do that. Okay, so now the subscription can be moved to different management group. For example, you will have a subscription for a sub organization. Maybe you might have acquisitioned the company in the recent past, and you might have had their resources in a separate subscription. And if you want to sell that sub organization or the child company to a different organization, you can just transfer this, or you can move this to a particular new vendor who has acquisition that particular child company from you. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. It is very easy, but then you need to have a Microsoft informed about this, so they should not be surprised that you are changing subscriptions like that. Okay, so let me go and start with the virtual machine. So Mauli, I mean, if you just look at my YouTube channel playlist, you have a little more in-depth details around these architectural stuffs. Okay,
Okay, sir.
sure, Mauli. Yeah. So coming back to the resource creation here, I'm just going to create a Azure virtual machine. As I told you, in Azure platform, these two things are mandatory. Okay, management group is optional, whereas subscription and resource group you should have without any exception. Okay, so these two things are mandatory in Azure platform if you're going and creating any resource. So you should have an active subscription, you should have a resource group for your resource. So that is the way you can go and create a resource. Okay, so as I explained, subscription is a logical boundary to have your resources created for these particular use cases. Similarly, resource group will contain the resources for a particular application. And I also talked about naming convention, right? And for an example, if you want to create a resource group, you can go and give it a name like RG. RG stands for resource group and followed by hyphen, or you can just have a contiguous name. So you can just say this is for particular application A or a particular application X, and then you can mention like which region this is part of and which environment this is part of, and you can give some numbers here. So that way you can identify what is the purpose of this resource group. This resource group is created for this application or this project, and this particular resource group contains resources for production environment or development environment, so that the engineers who are working on this particular resources will be extra cautious by looking at the environment category here. So when you go and create a resource group, I've given the access to the naming convention standard document. Okay, if in case you don't have access to that, let me know. So last week, after the session, you should have got access to my um, templates repository in Google Drive. And if you go here, you have the naming convention sample document, and within which you should have a kind of best practices naming for each of your resources, how to name a subscription, how to name a resource group, how to name a virtual machine, and so on. So all these standards, best practices reference should be available for you. Okay, so if you have already enrolled for the session and if you have given the Gmail ID details, you should have the access to these files. Okay, now let me go and create a resource group. So in order to create a resource group, again, resource group is again a logical container for grouping the resources. You can click on this create new option and you can give it a name here. And if you look at the definition for resource group is a folder or a container that will hold related resources. What is related resources? If you are creating a application or if you're creating set of resources for an application, so all those application related resources, the virtual machine, storage, network, IP addresses, network interfaces, so all those are related to that particular application, so they will be stored together in this resource group. For in this case, application X related resources whatever we are creating will be stored within this resource group. Okay, let me say okay. And scrolling down, there are certain fields which have asterisk here. So these fields you need to enter in mandatory, or you have to select that without any options. So the fields which are without asterisk, those are all optional ones. Okay, let's give a name for your virtual machine. I'll say appx prod vm01. Okay, you can just give whatever is meaningful based on your architect or design team, and you can go and create the resources in specific region. Okay, for example, they are saying these are the recommended location. I can go with East US. See, the reason why we choose East US predominantly is because the charges or the pricing in East US is much cheaper compared to the other location. See, if you think in a way that whether India will be cheaper or US will be cheaper or UK will be cheaper, definitely US will be cheaper. The reason is the hardware infrastructure, the real estate, all those things are comparatively cheaper when you are thinking about Azure platform, or sorry, when you are thinking about Azure platform and their resources. So how do I get exposed to those details? So if you go to pricing.azure.com or a pricing calculator in Azure, okay. So the link is azure.microsoft.com/pricing calculator. So if you go to this link, you will get to understand what is the pricing difference between these regions that we are selecting here. Okay, last week I showed you some example on how to go and choose a particular region based on the latency. You can go and run a latency test. So the very first thing, you have to check the latency, and then you can also compare the cost. For example, let's assume you are a customer from maybe like UK. You are in the UK outer, maybe you can say like you have option to run your services either in UK or Ireland. Okay, maybe you are in the countryside of UK and you have two different data centers which you can choose from. For example, you have London as well as Ireland data center from Azure where you can host your services. So in such cases, you have to choose the pricing difference between these two different Azure region, right? So when you go and compare the pricing, definitely Ireland will be cheaper because of the London real estate cost, the London infrastructure maintenance cost, the resourcing cost, the man hours cost, and so on. And you will end up choosing resources in Ireland. See, for example, I'll show you the comparison here. Okay, so if I go and create a virtual machine, so these are all architectural decision making, but still, I'm just giving you some understanding on how to go and create a resources within some specific budget. So for example, if I'm going and creating a server in East US, it will cost me 137 USD. Okay, there are a lot of other things that I can select to reduce the cost. For example, if I select Azure Hybrid Benefit, it will reduce the cost by um, like more than 50%, right? So because like if I have an existing license, if I'm bringing my own license, there will be a heavy cost reduction. Similarly, if I'm going for reserved instances, it will bring my cost even further down to $30. So there are a lot of options. I'll explain these things later. But if I go and choose another region, for example, if I want to run the same server with same specifications in my country, for example, if I want to run it in Chennai, it costs me $40 higher. Okay, this is what you need to understand when you're doing some POC or when you're doing some testing. Better to go with a region which is significantly saving you some cost. Okay, see if I'm choosing between uh, North Europe and if I'm comparing it with South Europe or West Europe, there is a significant some small difference. But if I'm going to another locations, for example, if I'm going to Ireland or any other region, it might be much cheaper. Okay, so in such cases, customers can go and choose the location which is having the similar latency, similar proximity, and which is giving them better cost benefit. Okay, so this is how you can make a decision on which region to choose. Last week I showed you how to go and choose a region based on the Azure latency checks that we saw. Okay, so let's go and so there are some inbuilt round trip latency checks that you can do within Azure platform, but there are some third-party sites where you can quickly do a latency check. So whichever location region is quicker to you, you can go and choose them. See, for example, if I'm choosing, I've decided to choose any of the region between East US and for example, I have option to choose, let's say South India, and I am just comparing between these three location. Okay, let's go with one more, West Europe. Okay, so if you look at the millisecond latency, for me as a customer, I'm doing this latency check from the customer environment, not from my home. I should. Okay, admin is claiming that my voice is breaking. Is it for everyone?
No, I can hear good.
Okay,
It's
so
fine.
okay, admin, you might have to reconnect. Okay, fine. So here, if you can see here, South India data center is only 18 milliseconds for me. So I'll go and choose the data center or the region by looking at the latency from my customer environment, and not just the latency alone, right? I'll also go and do a download, upload test, CDN testing, and looking at the different options here, and then I'll go and decide. And this is the primary factor. Second thing is, if I have two different locations, for example, I have if I have West India and South India, which are giving me very much similar latency, what I will do, I'll have to choose which one is cheaper for me. So that is where the pricing calculator comes in handy for me. Okay, so this is like for architectural stuff, but just thought of sharing a few inputs there. But here, this as an administrator or as a network engineer, the company should have already decided that which region you have to select here. So in such cases, if you are an administrator or an operations engineer, you will go and select the region which company has already decided. But if you are thinking beyond your administrative role, maybe on the back end, design team might have went through few selection criteria to choose which region is best for your customer environment. But as an administrator or but as a beginner, you can go and choose which region based on their choice. Okay, you will have to select the specific region from the list. Okay, as simple as that. And if you go and discuss about the availability option, again, the architect or the design engineer should have went through a particular selection criteria in order to choose which availability option we need to choose. So I can just give you some background on how they do that. Okay, just a second. So when an architect is designing, okay, they will always design for failure. So design for failure means they will always think, what if this virtual machine goes down? What is the impact to the application? See, when a particular customer signs a contract with service provider, we will have something called service level agreement. Okay, this is the availability agreement between the customer. I mean, availability is one aspect. Okay, there are many other metrics, but within your service level agreement document, you will have availability or uptime. Okay, so you will have a contractual agreement to provide this much amount of availability for the application or this much uptime for that application. And if they have asked for 99.99 percentage of availability or uptime, then this is a very high expectation, right? Which is very much closer to 100% availability. So your machine can go down in a year for very few minutes. Okay, in such cases, what you have to design, you have to go and create at least two virtual machines, and these two virtual machine has to be placed in two different regions or two different availability zone. Okay, so that you get better availability. Okay, two different region or two different data centers in the specific region. But if they are asking for 95 percentage of availability or 95 percentage of uptime, then you don't have to create multiple machines. You can just create one single VM, and on the back end you can go and select some standard HDD or standard disks to provide this 95 percentage of uptime. So you need to understand the contractual agreement of the customer before going and choosing this availability aspect. Okay, so but then I'll show you how to create virtual machines in different availability zone, availability set in a practical aspect. But as a design architect, they will be choosing the architecture, or they will be choosing the number of virtual machines and their placement based on the uptime expectation of their application, based on the availability requirement from the customer environment. So if they need 99.95 and above, then we need to have at least two virtual machines running in two different availability set or two different availability zone. For example, 99.95 can be achieved if you are going and placing two virtual machines in two different availability set. If you are having only one virtual machine in a particular location, then maximum that you can achieve is 99.90. So there are some calculations behind it, how we have to, I mean, how you will get it. But at a very high level, your design architect will decide whether we need to go and create multiple virtual machines in the same availability set, or whether you have to go and create multiple virtual machines in different availability zone. these design making decisions will be done by the design architect, not by you, not by the people who are in this call. In this call, like you are all administrators, you are, at least for now, you are all targeting administrator exam and network engineer exam, right? So for you, you don't have to worry about it, but you'll have to select the correct availability option based on the design. So how the design architect might have decided based on the service level agreement for that application, he might have went ahead and designed the number of virtual machine where they have to placed, I mean, whether they have to be placed in two different availability set or two different availability zone and all those stuff. So I'll clearly explain what is availability set, what is availability zone, and so on now. We already discussed last week to some extent. I just gave a briefing of what are the different geographical bifurcation we have when it comes to Azure. So availability zone means it is a physical data center. Availability set means it is a physical rack within your particular data center. So here, if I go and create a virtual machine, it gives me three different options. Availability zone. Availability zone is a physically separate data center. Availability set, it is a physically separate rack. And I have one more option, virtual machine scale set. We call this as auto scaling. If you have a workload which has got a difference in usage, for example, if the usage is varying across a particular month or a particular day, within a day, like if the usage is varying, you can go and choose this auto scale option or virtual machine scale set. Virtual machine scale set is nothing but auto scaling in AWS or in other provider platform. Okay, we'll see a demo on virtual machine scale set later. Okay, I'll also explain this theoretically as well as I'll show you how to play around with virtual machine scale set with a practical demo later. Okay, for now, let's understand the Azure availability zone and Azure availability set. Okay, so for first virtual machine, just go and create without selecting any option, without the, I mean, those are all without mandatory field. Okay, just leave this for now. I'm going to select only the mandatory stuffs. If I want to create a Windows machine, or if I want to create Red Hat Linux or CentOS or whatever, you can go and choose the operating system. From the list here. See, for example, some of the, okay, maybe if you have some unwanted screens in your view, you can just remove those, for example, chat window or the people attendees list. You can remove those things from your view. Okay, so I'm already showing as a full screen, but I've enlarged the screen for better visibility. Okay, here you can go and choose the specific image you want to, and you can see that there are certain images which are free tier eligible ones. Okay, when I say image, these are already having pre-installed operating system. Okay, you can also use customized images in your virtual machine. I'll show you how to create an image, how to take an image from your own development, and how to use that at a later time. Maybe tomorrow I'll be showing you a demo on how to do that. Okay, now I can just go and select the existing image. So I'm going and selecting Windows Server 2022 Data Center Edition. And if it has got multiple options, and when it comes to architecture, so if the operating system is having x64 and ARM64 option, you can choose which one we need to do. See, as an administrator, you have to select the right specification that is designed by the architect. See, for example, when it comes to resource creation, there will be a checklist. Okay, for example, I'll show you how it looks like. Okay, so when it comes to sample machine, okay, so you'll have a checklist like this. Okay, so they will go and select the design architect or the senior technical lead. They will go and select which region to choose, what is the OS name, I mean, what is the virtual machine name we need to create, what's the downtime. So all these fields will be pre-populated in that particular template. Whenever there is a new resource create that needs to be created, there will be a lot of information that is already pre-populated. So as an administrator, you have to go and choose the select right option from that particular checklist. Okay, so I mean, there are ways to create it automatically using some templates and infrastructure as a code. I'll explain that later, but for now, just try to understand how to create these things manually. Only then you can improve yourself in creating this in various options. Okay, for now, I've selected the Windows 2022 data center option for the operating system image. And here I have got multiple different sizes. Okay, so based on the business application requirement, they will say tell you like they need 2 CPU or 8 GB of RAM or 1 CPU or 3.5 GB of RAM. So based on the requirement, you can go and choose which one you need. Okay, I can just select this for example. Okay, I'll explain how to choose it shortly. Okay, now you can go and create a username and password for your virtual machine. So virtual machine is a virtual equivalent of your physical server. See, in if you have a laptop or a server or a desktop, so you have a physical machine, right? So similar to the physical server, there is a virtual equivalent you can create in the Azure platform, which is called virtual machine. Okay, I can explain a little more shortly, but for now, I'm just giving username and password that will be used for logging into the system. And by default, if you're creating a Windows server or a Windows client machine, a Windows 10 or a Windows 11 or a Windows 2016, 2022, by default, it will open up the RDP port, 3389 port. This machine is getting created in US East Azure data center. So you don't have physical access. So definitely you need to access it using some sort of remote connection protocol. So you need to connect it using remote desktop over the public internet, because this is public cloud provider option. So you will be accessing it over the public internet, and I'm selecting, I mean, by default, it will open up the 3389 port. This is RDP, remote desktop protocol, for accessing Windows server. Okay, similarly, if you are creating a Linux machine, automatically it will open the SSH port for Linux servers or Linux virtual machine. Okay, so if I go and okay, I'll create one more machine which is on Linux. So when you go and create any resource, the basic option is mandatory. Okay, within this basic, you have to select the asterisk ones, or you have to filter down the asterisk ones, and you have to enter those information mandatorily. But the other options like disk, network, management, monitoring, these are all optional things. But as an administrator, you need to understand all these things. I'll explain now one by one. Okay, but for now, without going into these screens or without going into these tabs, I can just directly go and review and create the option. So if I have existing licenses, if I have a license for my operating system, I can go and enter that license key here, so that I can save 49% of cost of this virtual machine. So if you want to understand the cost for this virtual machine, it will give me a kind of rough estimate on the review and create screen. Okay, for example, this is going to cost me 13 Indian rupees per hour. Okay, don't read it as 13,000. Okay, this is only 13 Indian rupees, 13.5 Indian rupees, 13 rupees and 50 paise in Indian value. Okay, per hour. Okay, this is the estimate that they are providing, but the bill will be generated on a monthly basis. Okay, the estimate will be given in a hourly basis, but the bill will be generated on a monthly basis. So if I'm going to run this virtual machine for maybe 10 hours, so it will be 13 rupees multiplied by 10 hours. Okay, so I'll get a bill of 130 rupees for this virtual machine if I'm running it for 10 hours. Okay, so that is how you need to understand it. Okay, you can just go through
Uh,
the, go ahead.
yeah,
Raj.
Raj. I
Hi.
had one question. Yeah. Hi, Raj. Yeah. Yeah. My question was, in case if we select the wrong specification, okay, by mistake I select the wrong specification. After 20 days, I realized I select the wrong one. If I revert back my specification, I will get the different bill. No, I'm right to say.
Okay, see, for example, Ashok, if you have created a machine, for example, with instance type 1 with X amount of memory, maybe let's say 4 GB memory and maybe like 2 CPU, for example, okay, but the actual intention or the actual recommendation was to create an instance type with maybe like let's say 2 GB of memory. I'm just giving some numbers for an example. Okay, so by mistake I've selected a higher category tier. Okay, so I'm realizing it after 10 days. This is what you are saying. So if you're going and changing the instance type after maybe 10 days, so you have remaining 20 days in a month, right? For the first 10 days, you will be charged for this instance size, and for the remaining 20 days, you will be charged for this instance size. That is the reason I'm clearly stating the charges are calculated on a hourly basis, but the bill will be generated on a monthly basis. For the entire month, whatever the size you have been running, it will be an accumulated cost at the end of the month.
Yeah, okay. And in this case, there is any time, any time there will be human mistake. No, we might get the additional bills. No, sometimes if anyone create
Yeah,
wrongly
see,
later,
human error,
yeah,
see,
yeah,
human error will always be penalized, right? Either it is your own, see, whenever you go and mistakenly restart your server, or you are doing some deletion or whatever, that will have a financial impact, right? So always human errors are possible when people are interacting with different systems, but we need to come out of like, or we need to educate the engineers to get out of these mistakes. So next time we need to find out a way to restrict these things. So how you can handle it? So there are ways to handle it. So Ashok, for example, you can go and create a policy to enforce creation of virtual machine within that particular sizes or within that particular instance type. So we'll see that at a later time during the maybe like after a few weeks, we'll get into those Azure policy related discussion. But for now, there are ways to restrict it to avoid such accidental creation of higher category instant types. Okay, so there are options to do that. There are options to restrict it. But if you have already
thanks.
done that, then no other option. You have to pay for it. You have to pay for the human error. Okay, someone else also started asking question. Go ahead.
Uh, yes, and this is Kabilan. See, I have a quick question. Does Microsoft start charging only after creating any resources, or if we create the subscription itself, they start charging? So, just want to know
Okay.
the difference.
Sure, Kabilan, good question. See, last week we discussed about two things. One is creating an Azure account along with the subscription, and also choosing a support plan. Okay, if you have chosen the basic plan, or if you have chosen the free tier plan, there is no charges, there is zero charges for this plan. But if you have chosen developer plan because of having some application at a development stage, then on a monthly basis you have to pay $29 irrespective of creating resources or not creating resources. If you have chosen standard support plan, irrespective of creating resources, you have to pay $100 per month. Okay, for subscription there is no charge, but for support plan there is a charge. Okay, I'll create this resource
Oh,
meanwhile. Okay, it will take a minute or two. Okay, go ahead with your second question.
no, that's all. It's very
Oh, you
clear
had
now.
only one question. Okay, okay, fine, fine, fine.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions before I move on? Okay, fine. So now
Stan,
this,
sorry, I just have one more question to add up. So,
yes,
as the other guy asked, right? So, in case after 10 days we realize that the configuration which we created is of a higher level and we wanted to downgrade it, right? So, in that
mhm,
case, it's not about billing. Billing is, I understand, it's hourly
mm,
basis, but on the configuration wise, is it like have to completely delete that VM and recreate with the same host name, or is it like can we normally reduce it? Because normally in the system we cannot do it, right? The normal the Dell blades and all
okay,
we cannot do it, but in
fine, fine.
here is it possible?
See, this is all virtualized platform, right? So definitely in a virtualized platform, there are room for changes at a later time also. See, I have created a resource here, and if I want to change it, I can go to the size here, and I can go and change the size of the virtual machine. For now, certain, for example, if I'm moving from one family to another family, or if I'm changing from one hardware to another hardware, the time it takes to change it will be different. But if I'm changing it within the same family, the downtime that is needed will be minimal, but you can change it. You don't have to entirely recreate the virtual machine. See, if you are looking to downgrade the size or upgrade the size, there is minimal downtime needed, but you don't have to recreate it entirely. I'll explain these things shortly, but for now, for your question, we need to restart the machine if I'm changing the size here. Okay, just there is a minimal downtime. You don't have to recreate it from the scratch.
Okay, Stanley, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So see, now the virtual machine agent is getting ready. Okay, so there will be 1 or 2 minutes of delay. Okay, for this particular situation, how much time it took to create. So if you go to the deployment details, so if I go to operations details here, it took me 25 seconds to create this resource, and entirely, like if I talk about the virtual machine overall status, I can just see like for assigning public IP address, It took only very few 10 seconds. So overall, the machine got created less than 2 minutes, right? So it is very quick. Okay, so if you think about the traditional data center, if someone from the application team or if someone from a particular department is asking for a server, it takes 3 to 6 months to go and procure the hardware that they need and get it racked, stacked, installed with the particular operating system with all the firmware drivers and so on. But in cloud, you get the virtual machines created in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes actually, instead of 3 months to 6 months time. Okay, so now I have got a virtual machine created. Okay, so I can go and select the virtual machines to find out the listing inside in this case. Okay, let me open up this. So now the warning message on the overview has gone. So you have to check if there is any warning here for the first before you log in. And for the machine that I created, it has got two IP addresses, public IP address and a private IP address. Public IP address is accessing from outside of Azure platform, and private IP address is accessing from within Azure data center. So now I'm sitting at my home, and definitely I need to use the public IP address if I want to access the resource over the public internet. Okay, I can just copy the public IP address and I can open up the RDP tool, Microsoft Terminal Services Client. I can type MSTSC, or I can go and type remote desktop connection, and I can open up this app to connect to that virtual machine. So I can just enter the IP address which I've copied from the overview panel, and I can say connect. Okay, it will prompt for my credential. Okay, I can just give my username and password here. Okay, it is showing. See, the beauty of Azure platform, whatever the name that you have entered in the Azure orchestration layer or on the Azure platform, the name of the operating system within the host name of the server within the operating system will also be changed already. Okay, you don't have to go and manually change like other public cloud providers. If you are uh, thinking about AWS or other platform, you have to go and manually change the host name within the operating system after creating it. So again, there is a downtime if you want to go and change the host name. So here with Azure platform, these are all certain advantages. When you go and assign a name outside, automatically Azure Orchestrator will go and assign the same host name within your operating system also. Okay, I'll mute the line if there are no questions. There was some background noise. I'll just mute all your lines. Okay, so now I can just go and check the host name here quickly. I can just go and open up the command prompt to check the host name, or else I can just check it under the systems properties or under the server manager. I can go and check what is the local server host name and so on. For now, see, it is giving this name, APPX production VM01. Similarly, I can just get the same thing here. Okay, so now the connection speed is also very good, and there are many other options through which you can connect. I'll help you understand how to connect using Bastion server and all those terms. Bastion host at a later time, but now I'm showing you how to connect it using the remote desktop protocol using the public IP address. Now I can go and verify the size, the system information. If I want to check the size of the configurations and so on, I can just issue commands like system info to check the processor details or CPU memory, and to verify whether I've got all the right configuration or hardware specification. Okay, so let me minimize this. So this is how you go and create a Windows virtual machine and connect it. Similarly, if I want to create a Linux virtual machine, the only option that I have to change is the image selection or the operating system selection here. I can go and select the same resource group, and I can go and create one more virtual machine. I can just call this as app X. This is Linux prod 01. And I can just call this, I can select Red Hat or SUSE or Ubuntu or CentOS based on your choice. And I can go and select different configuration. Okay, what is the region I've selected? East US is fine. Okay, so now if I look at this particular free tier category, by default in your subscription, there will be some quotas that will be applied. See, if I go to my subscriptions here, okay, by default in my free trial category, there are some quotas that are assigned. Okay, so usage and quotas. For each of the region, I will be entitled to create only certain amount of resources by default. For example, in East US, for the free tier category, I'm allowed to create only 4 virtual CPUs. I've already reached the limit because I've got 2 virtual machines already. So how to overcome this challenge in a free trial? In production category, you won't get such a small quota, but only for free tier category, you will come across these challenges. So I can go and request quota increase to change it to 12 CPUs or 16 CPUs based on your proof of concept or testing requirement. You can either do that, or you can go and create a virtual machine in a different region. Okay, you can have virtual machines created in different region, and the machines that you are creating in different region can be part of the same resource group. So resource group subscription are logical containers or logical folders. It can contain resources from different region, different availability zones, different locations, and so on. Okay, so these are all these two are logical constructs. Okay, now let me see whether I'm allowed to choose in East US2. Even it says this specific size is not available for this subscription, this location. I can just go and see what are the other options that are available. So it says this option is available. I can go and choose 2 virtual CPU and 8 GB of RAM, and I can select this. So certain regions will have limitation in selecting the specific sizes. Okay, so it depends on the availability of sizes in that particular location, whether I have got a particular category, standard category, or I mean, I'll explain this in detail. Okay, but for now, just let's go and create it. Okay, now you have 2 authentication type when it comes to Linux. When it is Windows, you have only one option, which is username and password. But when it is Linux, you can either use the public key private key combination, or you can use the username and password combination. Okay, you have 2 options for Linux system. So I'll show you the password option first, then I'll show you how to use the SSH public private key combination to log into the Linux server. Okay, I've given the username and password. See, if you look at here, since I have selected Linux operating system, it has automatically selected the SSH. So secure shell is the remote management protocol for Linux systems. If I scroll down, there is no licensing concept in Ubuntu Linux. So there is a subscription that you can go and get for better support from the community, but there is no licensing. So bring your own license is not applicable here. So that's the reason you don't see the licensing section which we saw in Windows. Now I can go and review and create it. For this specific virtual machine, which will be running Ubuntu Linux, the estimation is 6 Indian rupees per hour. Or I mean approximately 7, because it is 6 rupees and 90 paise, right? So it is close to 7 rupees per hour. Okay, if I'm running it for 10 hours, it will be 70 rupees for this particular virtual machine. Okay, so let me go and create it. Okay, I saw some questions on the chat. Can we take the resource from the existing VM? So you mean to say, Satish, you want to create an image out of the existing VM and recreate one more virtual machine? Okay, can we use customized image? That's fine. Okay, I don't know. Maybe you're on mute, Satish. So if you're asking whether you want to create a new VM using an existing VM, yeah, there are options. You can go and
Yes.
create an image out of the existing server, and you can create one more server out of that. I'll show you. I'll show a demo on that tomorrow. Okay,
Okay.
so it is feasible. Yeah. So coming back to the list here. So while the Linux virtual machine is getting created, I'll show you a few more things. Okay, so by default, if you are familiar with Windows operating system, by default, you will have a local administrator account that will be part of your operating system. Either it is a server operating system or a client operating system. You have something called local administrator. Okay, so what will happen to the local administrator as per Microsoft best practices? The local administrator, which will be by default available in your operating system will get renamed to the name of the username that you have issued when you created the virtual machine. So when I created the virtual machine, appxprod VM, I gave the username called STAN Stan instead of the local administrator. So what might have happened in your machine, if I go and check the users, so I can just go and type local user manager console. I can also go and open up the user management console from here. Okay, so you have various options to go and open up the user options. So here I open the local users and groups. If I go and check here, there is no local administrator. So what happened to my local administrator? It has got renamed to STAN Stan username. See, this is the built-in administrator account. So when you go and create a virtual machine in Azure platform, the local administrator user account will get renamed to the username which you are providing at the time of VM creation. This is the best practices to avoid any kind of brute force attack. What is brute force attack? Any attack that is targeted with default username or default port number and so on. So if you are leaving the virtual machine with the default administrator name, then this machine is slightly prone to any attack. They can try some combination of password along with the administrator and they can log in. So to avoid that, by default, Microsoft follows the practice of changing the local administrator name with the name that you are entering at the time of VM creation. Okay, so this is one thing that you need to understand. So other than this account, okay, let me just show you. So if you look at this Stan account, this Stan account is also part of the local administrator group. Okay, just a second. Okay. Okay, I'll respond back to this message. Okay. So now, okay, let me go back to the local user manager. Okay, here, if I go to the Stan, by default, this account will be member of local administrators group. Okay, so it will have the full privileges to manage this machine. Okay, let me close this. And one more important thing, if you go and look at the disk management or the disk partitions, okay, you can see that there are multiple partitions that are created by default. So if you look at here, there are two partitions that are created out of my virtual machine. One is the local C drive and the D drive. So why there is a secondary drive that has been created? So I have asked for only one drive maybe, but then I see an additional temporary storage drive. So this temporary storage drive is free of cost. Okay, see, in reality, if you go and think about a particular server, okay, so you have a server, physical server, and we are creating a virtual machine on top of your physical server. Okay, so this virtual machine now has got two disks. So the disk one is your operating system OS drive, which is your C drive. Okay, this C drive is actually coming from an external common SAN storage. Okay, so you have a common external SAN storage or external storage which has permanent persistence. Okay, so whatever data that you are storing on the common centralized storage device, that is a persistent content. Okay, even if you reboot the machine or if you're moving this virtual machine to another hardware, the content that you're storing on your C drive or in your data drive, that will not get impacted. But you have additional disk that got created, right? There is another disk that you are seeing, which is disk 2. This disk 2 is a temporary storage. So this temporary storage is coming out of your local server hardware. So if you go and purchase a server hardware, by default, it will have a lot of disks here. Maybe in some server you will have 8 disks, in some server you will have 12 disks and so on. So these disks are generally unused. So in order to improve the performance of your virtual machine or in order to improve the caching of your virtual machine application, Microsoft will assign a secondary drive which is free of cost. Okay, this temporary storage is free of cost, and you can go and store the caching information, or you can go and store the paging file information or virtual memory content in this local server hardware, so that you will get better performance. So how do they size the disk to? So whatever size you are giving for your virtual machine, for example, for this virtual machine, when I created it, I gave 8 GB of memory. always the temporary storage will be double the size of your memory. So if you look at here, it has got created for 16 GB. So the page file and the caching contents can be stored on your D drive. So this is free of cost. You don't have to pay for this 16 GB capacity. So here the guest logs will be collected. You can go and store the caching information. Even the paging, the virtual memory will be configured to store the caching or the paging on this particular drive. So disk 1 is free of cost. Disk 0 is actually getting stored in your SAN storage, which is chargeable, okay, which is a permanent storage or persistent storage. So I'll explain little more details as we move forward, but I'm just giving you some glance. For the first month, no, Mano. So you are not going to get charged because you have got a credit of 14,500 for the first month. You are just reducing this. See, it has already come down by 23 rupees. We are already 1 hour from this. I mean, we have already spent 1 hour in the session, right? So for creating 2 virtual machines, my pricing has come down to 20 rupees. Okay, I have already consumed somewhere around 28 rupees for the last 1 hour. Okay, this charges will be this credit will be utilized for the first month. You don't have to pay anything from your packet. Okay, Microsoft is giving us credit to go and play around by creating different resources. Okay, so the metering is already happening here. You are able to see how much credit you have to play around for the next 1 month. And see, after 1 month also, you have 12 months time to go and create some kind of free tier resources. So if I'm creating Azure file share for 100 GB, so I won't get billed for 12 months. If I'm going and creating Azure Kubernetes service related resources, I won't be billed anytime because it is always free of services. Yeah, there are certain services which are free of cost. There are certain services which are free for 12 months. There are certain services with limits for first 1 month. Okay, so don't worry about costing for now. I'll explain it in a little more details later. So now I'll show you how to go and connect to a Linux virtual machine. So for Linux virtual machine, you have multiple options. Okay, I can either if I have administrative privileges in my local desktop or laptop, I can go and install any putty client like putty tool or any tool, and I can open it, and I can use this putty client, which is an SSH client, for connecting to that Linux machine. I can enter this IP address. I can just go and uh, click open, and it will prompt for username and password. I can just enter my username and password, and I can log in. Okay, it is pretty straightforward. Okay, so you have this option to go and change it to root privileges, and you can execute any specific commands or whatever on your Linux operating system. So this is how you connect to a Linux machine. So this is actually running on Ubuntu 15.5. Okay, so what if I don't have permission to go and install like SSH tools like putty or putty? What I can do is, within my browser, I have options to connect to Linux instances using an embedded browser extension. For example, here I'm using Chrome, right? I can just go and type SSH client or secure SSH client, and I can just select the secure shell here. Okay, so now it is prompting me for username. I don't think this is connecting to the right machine, so I can just exit of that, and I can show you how to do this, how to enable it. I can just say secure shell extension for Chrome. If I enter this, it will take me to the Chrome extension menu. Okay, I have a Chrome extension menu like a Chrome web store. I can go and select install the secure shell from the Chrome web store. Okay, I can add different extension to improve the browser experience. Okay, so I've got a shell which I can use here. I can just open it. Okay, if I want to remove it, I can remove it later, but I'm just going to open up the secure shell here. Okay, so let me open it. Okay, so if I install it, I'll get an option to go and select the extensions from this menu, extension menu. I can select the secure shell. I can just go and say secure shell connection dialog, and it will prompt me for the details now. Okay, just give it a minute. It will open up the connection prompt. So it is asking me which machine I want to connect, what is the username and so on. I can just click on the connection dialog. So now it is asking for the username, IP address, and so on. So now I can say I want to connect to this machine IP address or not that. Okay, I can just go and copy the IP address of the Ubuntu machine, and I can enter the username at the rate of that particular public IP address. I can just change this connection dialog here. And if I want to change the port number, by default it will connect at 22 port. But if I want to change if I have changed the port for security reasons, I can also enter the port that I want to connect. Now I can just say enter connect. It will connect me to that particular machine. It is asking me whether I'm okay to proceed further. I can say yes, and it is asking me the password for that particular username, and I'm entering the credential. So now I'm able to connect to my Ubuntu machine from within the browser itself. Okay, sorry, from within the browser itself. Okay, so this is how you can create a virtual machine and connect to either Linux or Windows virtual machine. You have multiple options. So you'll start to see different options like Bastion host and jump servers and so on as we move forward. But for now, this is how you go and create a virtual machine and connect to those virtual machine using their respective client. Okay, now let's go and deep dive a little more into the virtual machine options. So let me go and delete one of them to avoid unnecessary cost, because I'm going to show you something on the first one. See, if I want to delete all the related resources along with that particular virtual machine, I can just say force delete here, or else I can just do a normal delete. I can give yes and delete it. It will go and delete all the resources associated with that virtual machine. So if you look at the listing here, if I go to the resource group, okay, I'll show you an important thing. When I go and create a virtual machine, okay, it will also create additional resources along with that virtual machine. So if I look at here, for my virtual machine, it has created a public IP address that is a separate resource. It has created a security group for restricting any ports that needs to be open. It has created a network interface. It has created a disk. So all these are resources in Azure. So when I go and delete the virtual machine, you need to ensure that all these items are getting deleted. Just give me a second, I'll answer this. Okay, sorry about that. So here, so there are multiple other resources that are getting created. See, if I go and delete that virtual machine, all the resources that got created along with my virtual machine will also get deleted. So how do I get to know what is getting created, what is getting deleted? So I can just go to the resource group here. I can go and check the activity log. So in this activity log, I can go and check what got created, what are the different resources that got created along with this virtual machine created. It created a network, it created a public IP address, it created a network security group, and so on. And this is one option. And you can also click on this bell icon where you can get to understand what are the different resources that got created along with the virtual machine creation. So here, if I go and look at the output, it will tell me, okay, this is not that. Okay, if I go to the overview, I can expand the deployment details. It will tell me what are the different resources that got created along with my VM. Along with my VM, it created a NIC card, network interface, it created a security group, it created a public IP, and it created a virtual network. So you can get to understand all these details. When I go and delete it, all the associated resources which got created along with my VM will get deleted. Okay, so so any questions so far on how to create a VM and how to access it? We need to create some rules and firewall to access VM through RDP, right? Okay, so I'll explain that. By default, when we created a VM, okay, it went ahead and allow that by default. See, if you look at here, when I selected a particular operating system or particular image, it automatically creates a security group to allow that particular remote connection. So it creates a default security group with access to SSH or RDP by default. So Thiessen has asked the question, right? Yeah. So I'll explain more a little more. What if I delete the VM within an hour after creating? Okay. So okay. So see the pricing. Okay, let me show you that. Interesting question. So it is again you will be charged for that rounded 1 hour, Chandru. Microsoft
Okay.
will get benefited. Yeah.
Okay. But
Okay.
AWS, that's not the case, I feel. It's not
Okay,
that.
it's almost the same. See, I mean, at the end, the pricing is more or less, you will have to get the rounded billing, the actual usage. Okay, so it depends on case to case. See, if it is at a very, I mean, you have created it and deleted it immediately, there won't be much of a pricing there. Okay, so it's like there are some back-end formulas that runs to calculate things. Okay, so now
Okay.
let me. Okay, let me give a break here. I have some commitment to complete. If you have questions, let's discuss that, and I'll give a break now.
Stan, I have a couple of
Yeah.
questions. Can I ask?
Yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so the first one is like, for the VM that we need to access from our open internet, that is from home Wi-Fi, usually we can normally access via MRDP. But let's
Mm-hmm.
say if we wanted to access the same VM from a corporate network, right? Usually the
Mm-hmm.
browsing internet from the corporate, that will allow only HTTP and HTTPS.
Mm-hmm.
Usually only those two ports are allowed for security,
Yeah.
blue code proxy or anything. So in
Yeah.
that case, is there any connectivity method, or
Mm.
is there anything where we can access it after connecting to any
Yeah.
VPN or something?
Yes.
Or
So here, no, you don't have to use. I mean, you can use VPN. That is one thing, or you can, if you have any existing jump server, or when I say jump server, if you have any other access to any of the server environment, you can log into that server, and from there you can connect. Or else, within Microsoft Azure platform, you have an option called Bastion. Okay, Bastion does not use the traditional 22 or 3389 ports or RDP or SSH. It doesn't use the traditional thing. It uses the HTTPS method. Within the browser, you can access the resources. I'll show you a demo on how to use the Bastion in tomorrow's session or in the next sessions. Okay, but there is an alternate option. Okay, so there are many ways to connect to it. So as I told you, you can either connect it using from your local desktop or laptop using the SSH or RDP connection. If if you're connecting from your corporate laptop, which doesn't have permission to do that, or which doesn't allow you to do that, you can log into any of the jump server or any other terminal server to which you have access, and from that terminal server you can connect to the Azure VM. Okay, or else if you still don't have any jump server or terminal server, and if you are still restricted with accessing SSH and RDP, you can access it using Bastion option. I'll show you the demo for that. Okay, what is your second question, Emmanuel?
okay, thank you. And the second question is that let's say if for additional security, if we wanted to restrict the access of these VMs from the public IPs using any whitelisting IPs, is that possible?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Okay, so if I go to my networking option here for this virtual machine, and if I am saying this network security group, I'm just answering your question. So others just, listen to it. If you're not following it, just skip this. Okay, so I can just go to the rule here, and I can just say I want to allow access from only this IP addresses. I mean, maybe like one IP address or 10 IP address or a range of IP address, or I can just say only from my IP address alone, or I can just limit to a particular range of IP address. Yes, it is feasible, and here is where you go and limit it.
Okay, thank you, Stan.
Any other question from you, Emmanuel?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, fine. Any other questions from anyone else?
Hey, Raja, I just have one question. In a traditional method, normally the OS guys used to do the patching and all. No? In this case, Microsoft used to install all regular patches on the virtual machine.
Yeah, you have a separate session of 3 hours on patching, how to do patching in Azure environment. You have a separate topic, you have a separate module on that. We'll discuss that, Ashok.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
Uma, you can go ahead.
My question is, if we are not using the VM, okay,
Hmm.
you said we have a credit some 14,000
Hmm.
USD. So if we are not using, is it possible to stop, pause,
Yeah. Yeah,
like
so you
that?
can definitely stop the VM. So you have the option to stop it here. You have the option to bring it down and start it later. See, there are a few things that you need to understand when it comes to costing, Uma. So see, there are two primary charges: compute charge, storage charge, and sometimes if you have a public IP address, there is a network charge also. Okay, so if you bring down the machine, if you power off or if you shut down the VM, the compute charges, the CPU memory consumption charges will be stopped, but still you are storing your data on the SAN storage for your C drive. Whatever occupancy you have, the storage charges will continue to happen. Okay, but if your question is just how to reduce or optimize your cost when you are not using it, yeah, you can bring down your virtual machine, you can shut down it, and then you can start it at a later time. See, I can just stop my VM here, and the consumption of compute, the CPU memory charges will be stopped now. And whenever I turn it back on, the pricing will start for the compute charges. But storage is different from compute. Irrespective of the
Okay,
machine powered on or powered off, you will be still charged for the storage cost.
okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
no problem, Uma. So maybe I'll give a break here for 15 minutes. I have something to complete. I'll do that. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so once after we create the VM, there are a lot of additional tasks that you can do. Okay, for example, if I want to change the size of the VM, or if I want to add additional network card and so on, I can just do that. See, for example, if I go to the size here, so I feel like 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM is more than what what I am looking for. Maybe I want to reduce 1 GB of RAM, and I can just select this other size, and I can say resize. Okay, this will go and resize my virtual machine to a lower size memory, so that I can save some cost out of this. Okay, so I'm just converting it now. I'm resizing it. Okay, it is going to resize my machine from version 3 to version 2, so that my machine is having lesser CPU. I can just, sorry, lesser memory. So it will take a couple of minutes to kind of refresh. Okay, so I can resize it. Someone asked that question, right? How do I resize it? You can downsize it, you can upgrade it whenever you want to do it. And similarly, if I want to have additional disk or additional network interface, I can just go and attach additional network interface by creating a new network card. For example, I can just say network card to, I mean, for example, if I'm going to use it for backup purpose, or if I want to use it for some data transfer, I can also go and create additional network card, and I can attach it to that particular virtual machine. Okay, so let me do that. I'm just showing you some examples. Okay, we'll do this again, time and again. Okay, but I'm just showing you that. Similarly, if I want to add additional disk, I can go and attach additional disk. I can go and create one more disk, and I can attach additional disk. This can be done without downtime. Okay, you can go and create one more disk. For example, I can just say disk 2, and I can just give some capacity here for maybe 4 GB or whatever, and I can save it. So now I have added additional network card, I have added additional disk, and I can show you how to check those within your operating system shortly. So whatever task that you're doing, you can see it under the notification under this bell icon, or you can go and check that under the activity log. So whatever operations we are doing now, everything will get updated in this particular activity log. Okay, now you can see the 7 GB memory has got reflected. So now I have reduced the size of the VM without impact to the content within that operating system. And let me start the VM now to see whether the changes are intact. Okay, let's see. Can we share the additional disk to another VM? Okay, so there is a concept, Srijesh. Okay, so there is a concept called Azure shared disk. Okay, we'll talk about that later. But just to answer your question, yeah, we have a concept called shared disk, which can be used for attaching it to multiple virtual machines simultaneously, if that was your question. Okay, now let's log into this VM. But in real time use case, it is very, very rare unless if you have some clustering requirement, or if you have some quorum that you need to create part of your failover clustering. That is one few of when you have very few use cases where you need to share the disk between multiple operating systems. If you want to share it across multiple VMs, then you can go and create some shared file system like Azure file share, or something similar to your on-premises file share, and you can share that between multiple VMs if you have such use cases. Can we add disk and memory without downtime? You can add disk without downtime, Satish, but you cannot add memory without downtime. You need to take some downtime for at least some of the generation. Moving forward, Microsoft is trying to allow you to add hot CPU, hot memory without downtime. But for now, adding disk doesn't need any downtime. But adding memory, definitely you need to take some small downtime. Okay, so let's see. See there, if you are interested in architectural level, as I told you last week, you can go to my Skill Up with Stan YouTube channel, and you can go to the playlist here. Okay, and within the playlist, you have a lot of architectural decision making videos. I'll be adding a lot of additional videos here. See, for example, if you want to learn uh, how to choose a support plan, how to choose a subscription, how to choose a disk storage, and I'll also add videos on how to choose instance size and so on. But here we'll discuss to certain extent. But if you are interested in doing deep dive on those areas, you can definitely go and look for relevant content there. Okay, so let me close that. So now the machine is available online. It is starting still. Okay, I can just refresh to see the status. So you can see different status here: running, start, running, or starting, stopped, and all those things. Only if your VM is showing status as stopped, then only billing will stop. If it is showing starting, stopping, running, then it will be still getting charged. Okay, so the status has to be completely stopped. Only then your billing will get stopped for your CPU and memory consumption. Okay, now I'll copy the IP address here. I'll try to log in again to look at the changes. Okay, I've made some changes, right? So let me copy this. Okay, from today onwards, see, it will be more practical oriented discussion. So even from your side, you need to kind of do all these things from a practical aspect to get more hands-on. So because we are targeting AZ 104, which is more of a administrator operations engineer exam, where we need to have a lot of hands-on practice. Similarly, network engineer examination also needs a lot of hands-on practice. Okay, so try to do the hands-on lab. I've given you the lab instructions access via the Google Drive. You can start following those instructions and start creating similar resources. Okay, so let's see. I've logged into the VM now. So let's see whether the new changes has got reflected. I can go and check my network connection properties. I can just type network connection properties in control panel, and I can open up the network connection, or I can just click on this LAN connection icon and I can open it, or I can just right click here and I can go to network connection. So you can select whichever option is known to you, and you can open the network connection panel, and you can see that there is additional network interface that has got created. There are two interfaces now. So that is what we expected. Similarly, I added one more disk where we can just see whether those disks is visible here. You can go to the disk management and see whether whether the additional 4 GB disk is there. I can see that there is additional disk which is getting initialized. I can say okay. And you can just see that 4 GB disk is allocated. So if I want to use this, I can go and create a volume. I can go and consume the entire space, or for now, I can just say I want to use 2 GB for now, and I can expand it at a later time also. Okay, I can use the 2 GB, and if I want to expand it at a later time, I can go and say extend, or I can shrink, or whatever you want to do, you can do it. If I want to extend it to the complete 4 GB, I can extend it. Okay, you have all those options. These things can be done without downtime. Okay, so adding disk size or disk capacity, you can do it without downtime. See, these disks which we have created are independent resource. So when I say independent resource, you can go and search for disks here, and it will show me the list of disks that are there in my Azure account. So you can go and change the size of the specific disk at a later time also. If I want to modify the disk size, I can go and click the configuration, or I can go and change the size here. I can go and increase it by 4 more GB, and I can say resize. So it will increase the capacity of the disk from current 4 GB to 8 GB. And I can just go and check that within my operating system here. I can just go and say action, refresh or rescan. Once after this is complete, you have to wait, you have to stay patient. Okay, give some time. So this updating disk has to complete. So once the message is done, we can go and refresh it within the operating system. Okay, so Satish, you are okay with the answer? You have anything else?
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. So now I can see the successful update of the disk is done. I can go and check the operating system now. I can do and do a refresh. You can, oh, without refresh, it popped up. Okay, I can see the additional 4 GB here. I can go and extend this drive. Okay, I can add more 2 GB, or I can extend it to the complete 8 GB size, whatever I want to. Okay, so this is how you deal with some of the regular routine activities in your operations role. Like if you want to go and add more disk, or if you want to add more network interface, or if you want to shrink the size of the disk, you can do all those stuff. Okay, so if I don't want that additional disk, I can just go and detach it first from the operating system. I can just say go to select the disk here, and first I need to go and detach it. So I can show you how to see. I can see the status is currently attached. Okay, so let me see if I can show you how to do that. Just a second. I'll go to my machine here. You can go to my virtual machine, and in that virtual machine, you can go to the disk. I can go and select this particular disk too, and I can try to remove this. Just a sec. Currently the properties, okay, it is attached to this. Let me go one step back. Okay, I can just click on this cross icon and I can save it. Now the disk has been detached from this virtual machine. Okay, I'm just waiting for the update to complete. Okay. Okay, now it is gone here. Okay, after I detach it, it is gone from the operating system. But if I go and check the disks category here, still that disk is available. It has been detached from the server. See, there is no owner for this disk now because I have detached it from the virtual machine, but still this disk is here. Now I'll have the option to delete it because now it is unattached to any of the VM. So if I go and delete it, this will save the cost of storage also now. Okay, there are two steps. You have to detach it from the VM, then you have to delete it. If it is already attached and it is associated to a particular virtual machine or a particular resource, you cannot delete it unless you detach it from the usage. Okay, these are some specific things you need to know after you create a VM, but let's again go back and explore a few more things around the virtual machine creation.
Stan, can we extend feature without downtime?
Extending C drive without downtime. Okay, that's not okay. Let's see. Let's try this. Okay, so we have this machine here, right? So earlier we had challenges, but now let's say if I can do it quickly. So for you, you wanted to increase it to, okay, next size is huge. Okay, so this is another important thing that you need to understand, Gopi and team. So see, if I want to change it to 150 GB or 200 GB, that option is not there in the cloud. But if it is on your premises or if it is in your virtual machine platform, you have the option to change it to whatever size you need. But here, unluckily, okay, you need to go with the next category tier. Okay, even if you need only 200 GB, you need to go and choose 256 GB. This is one of a small disadvantage, I would say. But see, it says you cannot change the property of the OS disk when the VM is running. So the additional disk can be done without downtime. So let's see. Let's go and power off the VM before changing it. So for your first question, yeah, the answer is no, you cannot change the OS size online, at least for now. Okay, maybe there are some backend enhancements that are happening within Microsoft. Okay, let me go and power it down. Okay, so let's say okay, and let's see, let's wait for the machine to get into stopped state. It will be deallocating for now. Okay, once after the machine is deallocated, okay, we can just go and do the changes. We can make the changes. Yeah, it is stopped and deallocated now. Okay, so deallocated in the sense that there is no CPU memory allocation that is anymore applicable. Okay, now I can just go to the disk of that particular virtual machine, OS disk, select that. Now I want to change the size, and I can just change it to the next category tier available, and it is getting updated. So OS disk needs downtime in order to resize, but the other data disk or additional disk, you can update it online. Okay, now I can just go to the overview. I can just go back to the virtual machine and I can start it back again. But you always need to give some time for the activity to complete. Okay, don't rush in your production environment. That will give some adverse impact to your system. Okay, always wait for the notification to complete. Don't rush any of the activity. Okay, just let's start the activity. Let's start the machine now. So technology will change over the period in cloud, especially Gopi. Like see, today we'll be seeing that it is not supported. Maybe next month things will change. Okay, so the cloud environment, the services, features, everything is fast evolving. So yeah, let's see. We have changed it. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay, fine. So now let's go back and discuss how to look at the other option. Okay, suppose I want to create a VM in a particular availability set. Okay, let's do a deep dive now. So for example, for one application, I want to create two VMs that has to be placed in two different rack. Okay, so when I say rack in a physical data center, you will have racks where you will have the servers, right? So let me show you diagrammatically. So data center rack, server rack. Okay, so here this is what I'm referring to rack. Okay, so all your server hardware will be placed into rack. Okay, so when I say availability set, this is one availability set and this is another availability set. So you will have one server running on one rack and another server physically placed on another rack. Okay, so now if I want to do it logically within Azure platform, if I want to use one of my virtual machine to run on hardware 1 and one virtual machine to run on hardware 2, what I have to do is I have to go and select the availability set option here. Okay, and in order to do that, I have to first go and create a new availability set. Okay, I'll just say this is my Apex VM 01. Maybe I'll start getting limit error if I'm going and choosing East US. Possibly I can just go and delete that other VM. Okay, so that I can play around more. Okay, I can delete these VMs so that I have more options to play around. Okay, let this get deleted on the back end. So there will be some room for quota to get updated, the budget to get updated. But now I'll just create one VM and I'm just selecting a availability set. Okay, here I'm going to create a new availability set with two selections, fault domain and update domain. So this is another important question when it comes to exam. Okay, so there will be questions around fault domain, update domain, and other areas. So understand this properly, understand this, follow me clearly. Okay, so there are three scenarios where Azure resources will get impacted. Here, Azure resources, it can be VM, storage, or anything will get impacted. So what are the three scenarios? Number one, there are always room for unplanned hardware outage or hardware maintenance. Your disk can fail, your server can fail, your network can fail. So hardware is prone for failure. It is prone to failure. Any physical IT equipment or any electronic gadget will fail. Okay, so you always have to predict that. You always have to keep in mind that something will fail. Okay, you have to design for failure. Okay, so number one thing, there are unplanned outages, which is because of the hardware. And maybe there are certain power failure or network device going down, or something like there is a data center activity or maintenance. So that is again an unexpected downtime. Okay, and another thing is planned downtime or planned maintenance. See, if you want to patch your physical server, or if Azure Microsoft is planning to do some upgrade of their network switches, or if they want to upgrade the server hardware or storage hardware, so they will do a planned maintenance. And if they want to upgrade the firmware of the server, or if they want to upgrade the driver in the server, or if they want to take the system for some routine maintenance, that is a planned maintenance. So they will let you know that they are going to do some changes on the platform infrastructure, and during this time there will be some performance impact, or the machines will get impacted during this planned maintenance activity. So you will get notification of all those activities under your planned maintenance. Okay, let me just show you that. So okay, let me show you the history here. If you go to the resource health or the service health, so all those planned maintenance alert will come under here. Okay, if Microsoft is going to do some planned maintenance in their own uh, platform infrastructure in the Azure data center where your resources are running, you will get an alert upfront. Okay, there will be a upfront notification maybe 30 days or 45 days before if it is a planned activity. But if it is an unplanned outage, then there won't be alert, proactive alert, but there will be a reactive alert that will be sent that there is some unplanned outage on the disk failure, or because of network issue, or because of power failure, or because of some natural disaster, there was a unplanned outage. So you have three different categories: unplanned hardware maintenance, unexpected downtime because of power or cooling, or whatever the associated surrounding environment, and the last one is planned maintenance. So how do we uh, plan our application to mitigate these situations? So there are planned and unplanned outages that are possible, right? So here there are two things that you need to understand: fault domain and update domain. So fault domain is pretty straightforward. Okay, if something, see, let's assume you have a hard disk. Okay, at your home you have an external USB drive or a hard disk. So think about that USB drive failing, or think about that whatever hard disk failing. What you will do? You will store two copies of your data in two different disk or two different thumb drive or pen drive. Okay, similarly here in the cloud platform, your application has to run on 2 different physical servers or 2 different virtual machine to mitigate such failures that are to mitigate some fault in your IT equipment. So any IT component will fail. Okay, always try to increase the redundancy of the application or data or information, so that if one server goes down or if one disk fails or if one network fails, you have options to connect to the system, or if you have access to the data that you are storing. So that is fault domain. So in Azure platform, you can have up to 3 fault domains. That means each application can go and store the application content, or it can run virtual machine on 3 different rack. Fault domain is 3 physical racks is maximum. By default, you can go and create your availability set for 2, which means 2 racks. You can maximum increase it to 3 racks. So you can create virtual machine. Even if you create 10 virtual machines, it will get stored, it will get created in 3 different rack. You cannot go beyond that. Okay, it can be placed into 3 random racks. Okay, and update domain is very easy. So you want to Microsoft want to patch their hardware. Microsoft want to do some firmware upgrade or driver upgrade, or they want to do some changes on the hardware infrastructure, whether they want to migrate the storage from old legacy hardware to new hardware, or they are refreshing the server, or whatever planned activity that they are doing. That is called update. Update is planned thing. Okay, fault is unplanned thing. So fault is unplanned, because fault will not tell you when come, but there are some symptoms, or there will be some kind of notifications you will receive. See, for example, if something is going to go down in your IT equipment, there will be some small indication. There will be sound in your hard drive, or there will be some high sound coming out of your CPU in your server. So there will be some symptoms that is coming out of the server, but before we go and react to that, the device can fail or the server can go wrong. But these are all unplanned things. The fault is always unplanned or mostly unplanned. Update is actually a planned activity. We want to upgrade the firmware from version 1 to version 2, or if you want to upgrade the OS from version X to version Y, or if you want to change the hardware from one old hardware to new hardware. These are all planned maintenance, update domain. So you can have your servers running on maximum 20 update domain. Okay, by default it is 5. Okay, default is 5, and you can also reduce it, but it is not a good practice to reduce beyond that. So you can have default of 5 update domain, and you can increase it to 20 update domain. So default is 5, maximum you can go up to 20 update domain. So what does this update domain means? See, for example, let me say, the fault domain, it was very straightforward, right? If I have 5 virtual machines, okay, let's say I have few virtual machines. Okay, I've created multiple virtual machines for the same application to increase the availability. Okay, let's assume I've got 2 fault domains. Okay, I've selected 2 fault domains. Okay, and similarly I've selected 5 update domain in my example. Okay, what will happen? The first virtual machine will get created in FD0, fault domain 0, which means it is getting created in rack 1. Similarly, my second virtual machine will get created in FD1, which is rack 2. So there are 2 fault domain, rack 1 and rack 2. So automatically my VM will get placed into alternate racks, so that if one rack goes down, there will be few more virtual machines that will be still online. If my rack 1 goes into failure, VM1, VM3, VM5, and the odd number VMs will be going down, but the remaining VMs which are on rack 2 will still be available. See, if I am increasing the fault domain to 3, what will happen? The fault domain will get better. Okay, my VMs will get stored in 3 different racks, so that I get better availability in my application. So if 2 racks also going down, still my application will be available from the other racks. For example, if rack 3 is failing, only virtual machine 3, 6, and 9 will get impacted. Rest of the other virtual machine will still be available online. Okay, this is fault domain concept. How about update domain? Update domain, okay, so Microsoft will do a grouping on the backend. So they say like UD0, update domain 1, update domain 2, and update domain 3, and so on. So here I've got 5 update domain. So since the numbering has started with 0, I can just say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. Okay, so these are total of 5, right? 5 update domain. Similarly, I can copy paste this. So what does this mean for you, for a customer? Okay, Microsoft, when they are doing a patching of UD0 hardware, the other hardware will be untouched. Okay, only the virtual machine that are running on this hardware, UD0 hardware, will get downtime, will experience downtime. The VM1 and VM6 will be going through the downtime when Microsoft is doing some planned maintenance activity on that particular physical hardware, either server or switch or network switch or storage or whatever on the back end. Whatever maintenance that they are doing on UD0 will not impact the other machines running on other update domain. So Microsoft will never update all the update domains at the same time. So they will do it in a sequential order so that the virtual machines running on these grouping will never get impacted at the same time. Okay, so there are two ways of mitigating failures. Unplanned outages will occur, planned outages will occur. Sorry, planned maintenance will definitely happen. In order to plan for or mitigate these two failures, you need to create multiple VMs and place them in a proper way so that your VMs will not experience downtime because of unplanned outages like power failure or disk failure or network failure or whatever, and even on the routine planned maintenance activity. Okay, any questions on that? There is an exam question around fault domain and update domain.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah.
Is that same for a failure cluster concept, or
Okay,
is that different?
clustering is, see, this is something which Microsoft platform team is going to handle. Okay, whatever you are asking, you are going to create a clustering at your guest operating system side, which is
Yeah.
your own design, and you are going to handle it. Clustering is different
Yes.
from this backend Azure platform infrastructure. Whatever we are talking here, these are all Microsoft platform infrastructure. Microsoft platform team is going to manage the physical failure remediation or physical planned activities will be done by Microsoft platform team, the hardware team at the data center, not you. Whatever you are asking is the guest operating system level clustering, which you are completely responsible for. If you
Yes.
are
Yes.
creating clustering, you will handle it.
Yes. The
This is
same
different. These two.
concept
Yeah,
for Microsoft is doing their end, right?
correct. I'm not seeing your name for some reason, but yeah. So no,
Sudhakar,
like
sir.
Sudhakar. Okay, Sudhakar. See, you have to understand it, but I don't want to confuse others. So, I mean, like any questions on this one, which is handled by Microsoft? Okay, good. So if Sudhakar, if you are planning to create a cluster of servers, okay, using some Microsoft failover clustering or Linux service guard or whatever, so you are creating cluster of virtual machines to form a, I mean, for a particular application. Okay, so you have created VM1, VM2, and so on. But if you have created all these virtual machines in one single fault domain or one single availability set or one particular without selecting the availability set and availability zone, your VM can experience downtime. All three VMs can go down if you are not properly doing a availability placement at the physical data center level. So you need to take care of both the levels. Okay, as a guest
Okay.
operating system management team, we need to ensure that our VMs are placed into different fault domain and update domain so that the guest clustering is taken care of at the platform level, as well as the level that you are maintaining. The virtual machine level management is your own responsibility, right? So you are the one who need to understand the architecture on the back end, and you need to run the virtual machines on different rack and different update domain to avoid any unplanned and planned outages.
Okay.
Okay, so now here I'll go and create a availability
Dan,
set appx. Go ahead.
one question. The fault domains, I can understand of physical racks. But update domain, is it a logical grouping of the units, or it is also physical separated?
It is a physical thing. See, in data center, what Microsoft will do is they will group some of the server hardware into UD0, UD1, UD2, and so on. So if you are running virtual machine on UD0, this hardware and these set of hardware will not be patched at the same time. Microsoft will not take all the racks at the same time. They will not take downtime of multiple racks or multiple update domain at the same time. See, for example, if Microsoft has grouped these two racks as UD0, these racks will be upgraded with newer hardware or firmware or driver. And once all these things are completed and validated, then they will go and move. They will go and maintain or do the maintenance activity on the second set of update domain. So you can consume, I mean, consider or virtually you can or logically you can think it is a group of servers in different rack and such a way. So availability set is different rack, right? Within availability set, these two concepts are subdivided into planned and unplanned. Both of them comes under availability set only. Okay, so these two concepts, availability set itself is physical rack. So they are grouping by physical rack to avoid any outages. Since Microsoft has got multiple racks and they can do maintenance activity for different racks at a different time, they are giving you option to go and place your virtual machine in um, a lot of different update domains.
Stan, I have a small
Okay.
question in this. So, no, okay, I can understand that now. No, it's based on their rack numbers. So let's say if we are creating no two VMs, I mean, based on the availability set, we create two VMs in two different racks, but we do not know from here whether the VM1 will be sitting in rack number 1 and the VM2 will be sitting in rack number 2 or rack number 22, anything it might be. So in that case, if let's say if it is next to back to back racks or next to next racks, usually Microsoft will not do the downtime for the next racks, so their pattern is completely different. But when we create the VM, we do not know this particular VM will sit in which rack number. So I mean, in that case, right, how do we know that if this will come under UD0 or UD1 or UD2? Let's say
Okay.
if Microsoft comprises 1 5 10 as UD1 and they do the downtime, but unfortunately the two VMs that we create go and sit in these two racks, right? So when they do the patching or something, the whole cluster will go down, right? So my I mean, am I is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
clear?
it's a good question. It's
Okay.
a valid question. See, the thing is, that's where these auto placements comes into picture. So when we go and create a VM, we are not allowed to go and say FD0 or FD1 or FD2. We go and select how much availability, how much redundancy we need for our application, whether we need 3 racks to place our servers or whether we need 2 racks to place our servers, whether we need 20 update domains grouping or whether we need 10 update. That is the only thing you can choose. Okay, I'll show you the demo quickly now so that you get to understand this properly. For example, here I'm selecting 2 fault domain and 5 update domain and I'm saying okay. So I'm creating the first virtual machine now, and I can just give some sample default, let's say. Okay, this is because of the limit. I can just refresh this and then see whether the virtual machines are already gone. Yeah, perfect. So I can just quickly show you again. So I can just go and select the existing group. I can just call this as Apex VM01 or VM availability set 01. And I can just go and create a new availability set. Okay. So here there is no availability set. I can just go and create one. Application X availability set 01. So 2 and 5, fine. Okay, let me go in. Okay, this size might not be available, but I should be able to create smaller one. I can go and create 1:1. This is just a demo, right? I can just select the minimal one and I can go with the username and password. Okay, this is all fine. I'm creating it. Now I've created a VM and I've selected a redundancy option that I need is I need to have an availability set involved in this particular VM creation. See, it says only 1 Indian rupees per hour, which is very, very cheap. Okay, and you can see that I have created a new availability set, and this particular VM is going to be part of availability set. Let's see. Okay, let the VM get created. So if you ask me, anything that is listed on the left here, okay, everything is an individual service or individual resource, meaning I can go and create an availability set upfront before even you're creating the VM. Okay, I can handle each of these things individually. So if I go to the availability set, for now, nothing is there, and it will automatically get created within a couple of minutes. It's getting deployed now, right? I'll just show you, I'll refresh and show you that the availability set is getting created in this case. Okay, see, it is starting to create all the stuffs. The very first thing it created is the availability set. Now if I go and refresh it here, I should start seeing the availability set. I can go and create an availability set even before creating a virtual machine. So everything can be handled in Azure platform as a separate individual resource. Okay, now coming back here, I'll go and create one more virtual machine that will be part of the same availability set. Okay, so I'll select this and Apex virtual machine AS01 or 02, and here I have to select the same availability set. Okay, I'm going to select the same availability set, and I'll select the same small size. I'll give it a name. Sorry, give it a name for the user. I'll give some password and create it. This time again, the second VM is also going to be part of the same availability set. Okay, let's see, like there is some validation failed. So required information is missing. What information is missing? Let me go and see what is the error. Okay, nothing. I've selected everything properly. Okay, running final validation. Let's click on the details. It says as a quota of 3 or okay, see, interesting. This now you have to be very, very careful. See, the subscription has got only few IP address that I can create. I can create only 3 public IP address. See, when I deleted those virtual machine, the public IP addresses that got created along with my VMs were not deleted. So these public IP addresses are chargeable if they are not attached to any virtual machine. So I can go and check that here. I can go to the public IP addresses and I can go and see what are the IP addresses here. See, the virtual machine IP address which I created for my Ubuntu VM and the VM that I created before the availability set, all these are still here. So I have to go and delete these things. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I have the delete option here. I can also do a multi-selection and delete if I want to. So you have the delete option here. You can do a multi-selection delete also. So some of the resources are not getting cleaned up along with the VM deletion. So you have to be a little careful. You have to go and validate whether all the resources associated with that particular application is getting removed. So that is the reason why Microsoft came up with a concept called resource group. If the application wants to be decommissioned, you can go and delete the entire resource group. For example, if application X is going to get decommissioned, I can select this and I can delete the entire resource group so that all the resources within that application resource group will get deleted. Okay, but for now, just get better at all these things. It says public IP address is still allocated to resource something and it cannot be deleted. Okay, so let's go and fix that. Let's see what exactly the error is. So now I'm going to the public IP address. It says this VM, this IP address is still in use as per Microsoft the backend database. So see, it is still associated to some machine. That is the option. Disassociate option is still enabled. If I go and select disassociate, now it will remove the virtual machine from that network interface. Okay, the network interface of the Ubuntu VM. Similarly, I can go and disassociate this particular IP address from the respective network interface. Okay, anything that you want to delete, it has to be detached or it has to be disassociated before you go and do a cleanup, before you go and delete it. Okay, initially, like you might feel these things are a little complicated, but these are all very simple things. If you go and practice it, you can quickly learn it. Okay, even if someone is not comfortable or like not able to follow these things in English, go and search out for my videos in Tamil. If you follow, if you can follow it, and you can just get to understand these things in a better in your local language. Okay, I can refresh this and okay. Okay, let me delete. No, no, I should not delete this. This is for my application and the new VM that I created part of the availability set. Okay, let me delete these ones. Okay, now I should not see any error. It should successfully get deleted now this time. The earlier it showed, now it is deleted successfully. Earlier it threw an error because it had some association. We have to decide. The error message will be very clear. Okay, it will clearly say what we have to do in order to get the activity completed successfully. Okay, let me close these things. Now I can refresh it. Now I can have cleaned up the unwanted public IP address. Now I have room for more virtual machine create. Okay, so now let me go back to the basics. Let me come back to review and create. It will go and validate on the backend. Sometimes the validation will reflect the live scenario. Okay, very good. It validated and it checked for the cleaned up public IP address. Now I am allowed to create one more public IP address here. So I have room for more public IP address. If I create now, it will go and create one more public IP address because I have cleaned up the unwanted resources. Okay, these things will not come in your production scenarios unless if you have some quotas or if you have some restrictions. These kind of messages will come out. But you need to understand these stuff because you will also work on development environment. You will work on production environment. In some development environment, they will have restrictions like this. You will start getting error messages or validation errors like this, and you need to go and fix them. Okay. Okay, now the VMs are getting deployed. So to answer your question, Emmanuel, if I go to my availability set, I can start seeing virtual machines in that particular availability set. See, in this availability set, I will start seeing the list of virtual machine part of that. See, the first virtual machine is now part of FD0 and UD0. The second virtual machine that is currently getting created will be part of FD1 and UD1. So there is no room for failures if you are replacing the VMs in multiple fault domain and update domain. If the entire data center is going down, that is where you have to go and create your VMs in different availability zone. Okay, so you
Yeah,
are not
thanks.
handling it, Emmanuel. Okay, so you are not going and selecting fault domain or update domain. You are just selecting how many fault domain you need, how many update domain you need. Microsoft backend platform orchestrator, it will decide the placement of your virtual machine into the specific FD0 or FD1 or FD2 or whatever. Okay, so Microsoft will be providing you credit if they are not able to provide you the uptime that you are expecting. For example, if I'm running two virtual machines on two availability zone or availability set, you are guaranteed for minimum 99.95 percentage of uptime for your application. If they are not able to provide it, they will give you service credit. They will give you in terms of credit actually. Okay, if they are not able to achieve the SLA. Okay, now let's give it a refresh. You are clear now, right, Emmanuel?
Uh,
Yes,
Stan,
yes.
just
Yeah.
one question, Stan, Vivek here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
maybe like this fault domain is basically, as you said, like,
Mm,
based to prevent the outage which may be causing because of a particular rack down due to a
mm,
power or something, right?
mm. Yeah.
Similar way, the update domain is nothing but we are patching the bare metal or
Mm,
whatever that
mm,
Azure is using to hold the VMs. But
mm,
even though if you are placing in multiple fault domain and updomain,
mm.
right? But still we won't face any outage until they do the maintenance, right? It is for the very worst case, like the entire rack gone down, or the update which they pushed to the bare metal is started doing some malfunctioning of the
Mm.
particular list of bare metals, right? So if even though if they're
Yeah.
doing maintenance, I don't
Mm.
think so that it will create some outage for our VMs.
That is true, Vivek. See, if it is a planned
Yeah.
maintenance, the virtual machine will get migrated to another hardware so that your VM is not get impacted. But Microsoft is giving us maintenance notification, then you might have to go to the virtual machine, and sometimes you might have to move it online to another virtual machine. So you can click on this redeploy option to move the virtual machine from one hardware to another Azure host. So there are ways to avoid outages because of some planned maintenance and so on, as you said. But by default, the understanding on update domain and fault domain is like they are getting placed into different racks. So when Microsoft is patching a set of racks, your virtual machines running on the other set of racks will not be impacted. This is update domain concept. And if there is some failure on this particular rack because of power or because of server going down or because of disk failure or because of top of the rack switch failure or backend storage failure, these virtual machines which are running on this rack only will get impacted. The other virtual machine running on the other rack will not get impacted because of the fault, because of the unplanned hardware issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Now let me go and check the availability set here. I can go and check the availability set. These are slightly advanced concept, but again, we need to understand for our exam point of view for associate level. Okay, now you can see that I have got two virtual machines which are running, and see Emmanuel here, my second virtual machine is part of FD1 and UD1. So if Microsoft is patching UD0, only virtual machine 1 will be impacted. Microsoft will never patch UD0 and UD1 together. So there won't be downtime for both of your virtual machine at the same time at any point of time. But if you are unlucky, there are chances both the racks might experience failure because of power or whatever reason. And that is when you go and design your VM to be running on two different availability zone. Okay, now I'll go and delete these virtual machines. Okay, now we have
Stan,
learned. Go ahead.
one question. In practical scenario, when will we go for the availability sets, multiple
When your
VMs?
application is demanding more uptime, more availability. If your application needs 99.95 or 99.99, then that is where you go, and the design architect will decide how to place the virtual machine, how to create the virtual machine. All those decision making will be done by the design architect when your application is expecting more uptime.
Okay, but in that case, should we not look at availability zone or it is availability set itself?
When availability zone is available in the region that you are placing your resources, obviously you need to go for availability zone. If availability zone option, see for example, when we discussed second class in Chennai, we did not have multiple availability zone. Do you recall that?
Right.
Right. In
Yes,
such
yes,
cases,
yes.
you have only option to place your virtual machine in two different availability set. Okay. If you have the option of placing it in a better way, always go for availability zone. Why do you want to limit yourself? Okay. So yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now let's, yeah, sure. Okay. Let me go and clean up the public IP address. Okay, it's a learning curve for us, right? So it did not get removed because the detaching is not happening automatically. So we need to disassociate it, and then we have to delete these things. So after the practical practice, you need to clean up these things. Okay, how do I check how many resources are left out? So you can go to this option here and you can select all resources, and you can find out the complete list of resources that are there. See, for example, if I'm done with all my labs, I don't want anything to remain on my account, select all this, go and click delete, and you can do a mass deletion. Okay, that is also feasible. Okay, you can delete, I mean, not in your production environment. Okay, so I'm just giving you options that are available. So you can go and delete all the resources in your Azure subscription. You can go and delete all the resource part of your resource group and so on. You have different options to explore. Okay, now I'm going to create a virtual machine and put them and place them into different availability zone, different availability zone. Availability zone means physical data center. I'm going to create VM1 in one data center and VM2 in another data center. So I'll go and select the resource group. I'll go and say Apex VM01, and maybe possibly I can just say availability zone. Also, I have redundancy just to denote that. Okay, here I'll select availability zone. Here I'll select which data center. I want to place this in data center 1. Okay, and I can just go and give it a name. Okay, review and create. Okay, same price, no price difference, 70 pies per minute, sorry, 70 pies per hour, 75 pies per hour. So when you practice, go and create minimal resources so that you don't waste your credit. Okay, don't create small resources to practice. Okay, don't create larger resources just for the sake that you have got 14,000 credit. Create as small as possible for small practices. Okay, now I'll just go and create one more VM in second data center. Okay, app X VM availability set 02. I can just choose availability zone 2. Okay, give it a username and password. Since I've got multiple data center in this particular region, I'm able to choose it. I'll show you one more thing quickly. See, suppose if I'm trying to create a VM in a location where availability zone is not there, for example, let me go and choose Central India. So resource group is a logical grouping where it can contain resource from any different region. For example, I'm going to choose South India in my case, but West India has got multiple data centers. Where is South India? South. Why? Central India is recommended. Interesting. So say for free tier, they are not giving me option to go and choose. But anyway, Central India. Let's go and choose Central India for an example. So here, okay, they have got multiple availability set, availability zone. But let me try choosing a location where we might not have availability zone. Okay, let's see. Norway East. Okay, still, okay, let me. Okay, mostly like the list has got, the recommended list has got all the different data centers. Okay, let me, the problem with free trial is this. Okay, so if I'm choosing something like South India or some other location, you will not get the option to go and choose availability zone. Okay, that's the important thing you need to understand. So I'm just selecting no infrastructure redundancy. Okay, let me watch out for the question. Srijesh, that's why it's not showing the South India not having. Yeah. Okay. Does Microsoft do planned maintenance one domain at a time always? Yes. The answer money. They do only one update domain at a time. Yeah. So here, let's go and check the virtual machine creations. So now, if I go and check my VM1, it should be running on data center 1. So it is on East US data center 1. I can check it here, or I can also go and check it in the configuration also, not under the configuration, under the placement, sorry, properties. So if I go to the properties, I can also see that the virtual machine is part of availability zone 1. Okay, similarly, I can go and check my other virtual machine. This VM is now part of zone 2. So Uma, does that answer your question? So whenever you have option to go and place your VM in two different data center, always go for that.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, fine. Okay, so now let's see. Let's go and create a virtual machine. Okay, we are just creating VMs on a fly, right? That's how cloud is. Okay, let's go and create one more VM. Okay, let's explore other options. See, they are giving me architecture option also. See, if I want to run my application is based on ARM. See, ARM based virtual machine provide up to 50% better price, better performance. See, if you want to save cost, if your application can run on Ubuntu, Linux, or any other Linux that has got different VM architecture, always go for the architecture which will give you better performance and better cost. Okay, just a small tip actually. Okay, so if your architecture supports ARM processors, the ARM processors and even the AMD processors are cheaper than your Intel processor, and the VM architecture also x64 is always costlier than ARM64. If you want to save some cost with better performance, you can go for the ARM64 if your application can run on Linux, which is compatible with ARM64. Okay, so okay. Any questions so far from anyone with availability zone, availability set? How to go and create a VM in different availability zone, availability set?
Stanley,
No,
we
yeah,
have created the VM without any other. So is it possible to do it afterwards? Whether we need to create the availability zones later wise?
Okay, Money. So Sudali Money, right? So I don't know what is it. Okay, so I'll go with Sudali Money only. Okay, so here, if I have an existing VM, so initially I did not have availability requirement from the customer, so I went ahead and created the virtual machine without selecting the availability set or availability zone. So that is the current scenario that I've got in front of us, right? So now, how to deal with that? Can I move the existing version machine to an availability set? The answer straightforward, there is no option for that, but there is a method to do it. How do we do that? Go and select that machine, go and take a image capture of that, go to services, and you can just capture the image. And once after you capture the image, from the image you can create a new VM into the availability set or availability zone, so that your configurations, your application will remain as before. But you cannot do it without downtime, Suleiman. You have to go in a roundabout way. You need to capture the image and see. Let me show you. So once
It's like
after
a
I create
cloning.
kind of cloning, yes. So I'm just going to review and create it. I'll just give it a number or a name here. Okay. Okay, I'll just give some name. Okay, Apex VM2, review and create. Okay, I'm assuming that this VM has got created without any availability option. Okay, so now what it does on the back end, that VM is getting stopped in order for the image to be captured. So you cannot capture the image online. So you have to bring down the virtual machine in order to capture the image. Sorry, capture the image. Always remember this. If you are going and taking a image capture, it will bring your virtual machine down. So don't accidentally stop your VM. So always beware of small things. Okay, so these things can end up into a major disaster in your production environment. When you're going and capturing your image, the virtual machine will be stopped. Okay, so if you are planning for image to be captured, or if you want to take an image of your existing VM, inform the customer that there is a downtime associated with that. So always, okay, it is generalizing it. So once after the image is captured, so you will start seeing that under your images list. Okay, so once after the image is ready, you can see it here. And after the image is ready, so what is the image? Image will have whatever the virtual machine had it earlier. So the operating system, the applications, the code, the script, whatever that was within that virtual machine, everything will be um, captured into that image. So that image can be redeployed to create a similar exact clone of that running machine. Okay, let's wait for that to complete. So now you have an image. So I can just select this. I can go and create a new virtual machine using that image, or I can clone to a new VM image also. And now I have the option to get them placed into a specific availability zone or availability set or whatever you want to. Okay, there is no direct option to move from non-availability option to an availability option, Sutalimani, to answer your question directly. But there is a way to do that. Okay, so but you need downtime. You need to take the machine down in order to place them into availability concept. Clear? Okay, I'm not hearing you anymore. Okay, fine. Let me answer this quickly. I'm just going through the questions on the chat. Okay, so where do you inform Microsoft that you are setting up a DR for the resource group so that they recommend availability zone pairs? See, like they are giving you the option, Mani. Okay, so you can just go and create with the options that they are providing to us. So you have the option to go and choose the availability set, availability zone, so that you have better redundancy, better availability for your application. Okay, now let's quickly summarize this. So when you are creating your VM, you have multiple VM availability option. So the very basic thing you get is availability zone. See, if you have only more than one VM, then these availability options can be improved. So availability can be improved by having multiple copies, right? You can compare it with the analogy of having multiple disks for your information, right? If you are storing your information in one external drive or one pen drive, if that goes down, automatically it's a single point of failure. So if you're having single virtual machine, these concept does not apply. Okay, so if single VM goes down, then the entire application is impacted. So only when you have multiple machines, you have the option to go and get them placed into different availability concept to improve the availability or to improve the uptime. Availability is nothing but uptime, right? So availability set is different rack. Availability zone is different data center, physical data center. And if there is a power source issue on the rack, if there is a rack failure, or if there is a VM failure, or if there is a server failure, or if there is a backend network switch failure on the top of the rack switch, or storage failure. So all those things can be mitigated in availability set. But if the multiple racks are failing at the same time, you cannot tolerate using availability set. So in such cases, you have to go and place your VM in different data center so that you can have independent power of the data center. The data centers will have independent power, independent cooling infrastructure. It will have independent networking infrastructure and independent storage also. Okay, so these things can be independent of, completely independent of each other. Okay, and you can also go and put them into paired region. This is additional another thing. I mean, we already gave a glimpse of it. For example, if you're putting your primary server in region 1, central India, and you can have the secondary copy running on South India. See, how do we do that? I can just show you a quick glance of it. So I have my virtual machine, and if I want to improve the availability of one of my virtual machine, I can select this and I can go and select the disaster availability option here, or disaster recovery option. And what I can do is I can go and start cloning my VM to another region. If currently my virtual machine is running on East US, I can go and clone my virtual machine to West US so that my availability is improved. If there is a DR or if there is any issue, I'm answering your question, Mani. Okay, so if my primary, see, generally like the options they give, see if there is a natural disaster like some tsunami or whatever natural calamities are going on, or sorry, some natural disaster are happening. So they will give option to go and place in different coast. See if there is a monsoon in one of the coast, the other coast might not be impacted at the same time, right? So what you can do is you can go and clone your virtual machine into two different regions. So I can just start cloning my VM from East US to West US. I can just start the replication just by a button click. If you are replicating your data from one particular region to another particular region, this will be asynchronous. Asynchronous means asynchronous. The data will not be exactly same in both the region. There will be some small difference or delay in data getting replicated. But if you are replicating, or if you're having multiple machine within the data center or within the region, okay, then these are all synchronous replication. Both the machines will have exactly same copy of backend information or data. Okay, you can also go and replicate your virtual machine to a different region also, from Mumbai to Mumbai to Chennai, or from East US to West US. Even you can do it from one region to another region in the globe also. Okay, these are all called the pad region concept. Now my VM is getting replicated to one another region, and I have two copies now, one in my primary East US site and another in my West US site. So is it clear, Money? I can set up a DR like this. So the entire region, even if the East US is going down, I have a copy of my VM in another region. Okay, so
Yes, it's fine.
okay, so lemon is fine. Okay, then Chandru. Okay, in general, data centers have RAID mechanism for storage still, or any other is used. Definitely, there is RAID concept on your physical storage. Okay, so physical storage will have RAID 6 or RAID 60 or whatever better RAID that is supported on the physical storage array to have better availability on the disk level file.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so any other questions from anyone else? Okay, I'll mute all the lines to avoid background noise. So now, okay, so we have been seeing a lot of interesting options around this. So now my VM is getting replicated to one more region. I'm getting a copy of my VM in West US region now. So we'll discuss these things at a later time also. We'll go through each of these small things at a later time. Okay, so I can also go and choose another location also. See if I want to replicate my VM to UK also, I can do it. Okay, it is not that it is, I mean, you can choose whichever region you want. See, for example, all these green ones you can select. If you want to replicate a VM from East US to Chennai, you can also do that. Okay, it's not that you have to do it within this particular North America, but if your company, if your organization has got some legal requirement of not replicating the data outside of a geographical boundary, you should not replicate it to outside of a geography. For example, North America is a geography, Europe is a separate geography, Africa is a separate geography, and Asia is a separate demography as well as geography. So you should not replicate the data across outside of your geography if there is some legal or compliance requirement in your organization. So beware of those restrictions.
Stan,
Yeah,
question, can I ask?
yeah, yeah. Please, please.
So, I mean availability and disaster. So, disaster recovery can be set across region or can it be within the same
Yeah, that's what I'm
availability?
showing, right? So DR can be set up between US and UK, US and India, UK and India. You can do this. That is what I'm showing here. This is disaster recovery. If
Correct.
the
But
entire
can we
East
do
US is
it
going down, can we?
if we have, I mean, it's little, I don't know,
Uh, Fine, fine.
we have
Always fine. Yeah.
two VMs, we are creating two VMs in two availability zone.
Hmm.
Can we make those as a disaster recovery option?
Yeah, it is
No,
again
or it
disaster
is
recovery
already
only, right? See, don't think disaster recovery at a very larger
can
level.
be
Even
within.
it is even these options are disaster recovery, right? So disaster can be small or big. Okay, so it can be one rack failure that can bring millions of dollar impact to an application. Even one particular big data center failure can bring in small revenue loss to a company. See, disaster means it can be very small as like a disk failure, which can cause millions of data loss or like millions of revenue impact. Even an entire data center can go down. So disaster means it can be as small as a human error. See, one person can go and delete the VM, right? That is again a disaster only. Okay, so you don't think only when the entire data center is going down is a disaster. Even a small mishap is a disaster. So that is what we are dealing here. Okay, how to deal with a small disaster like rack failure or VM failure, how to deal with a data center failure, how to deal with the entire region failure. All these are disaster recovery scenarios.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, got it. Okay, perfect. So I think we are closing in coming closer to the end of the session. We have got only 4 more minutes. I don't want to introduce one more topic today. So yeah, go ahead, go ahead. If there is a question, I'm open to answer it.
Stan, okay, just a couple of questions. So the first one is like, when we create a resource and we create a VM, right? The IP address allocated, that is always a static IP or a dynamic one?
By
Because if
default,
you
it is a
connect from,
dynamic IP. By default, it is a dynamic IP. But if in case you want to make it to static, it is very much possible even after the IP is allocated. I'll show you that, and even in the future, I'll show you these things. See, for example, I have a network card, and this network card is tied or it is linked to an application. I want this IP address to be not changed at any point of time. So in order to achieve that, I can go to IP configuration. Currently it will be dynamic, and if I want to change it to static, I can always change it. Okay, I can just go and say static IP address, and I can have an IP address like 10.0.0.100, and I can leave it a lifetime for that VM. You can have it as a static IP address anytime you want, but I'll cover this later also. To answer your question, by default the IP addresses are static IP address, but you can change it to a by default the IP addresses are dynamic, and you can change it to static anytime.
okay, and the next one is, now you have informed about that cloning thing, right? Like, we do the cloning for the other location for the high
Mm,
availability. So in
yeah.
that case, whatever resources that we have created in one
Mm,
particular zone,
mm.
I mean, that will be created to the other location. But how about the host names and all? Will it be like they will add 0102 in the suffix, or the same host name will be available, and the IP address
Okay.
also will change, right?
See, when you cut over, but at any point of time, you will not have two resources or two servers running with the same name, right? So there is a concept called failover and switchover of the names, but those things we will discuss during the disaster recovery. Actually, there is a separate session module for disaster recovery and migration. Okay, I'll explain these things in very greater details. But since it is initial class, I'm just giving a very high level view. Okay, you will start getting to understand these things in very minute details at a later time. But
Okay,
yeah,
Stan.
to answer your question, Emmanuel, there should not be a conflict in host name or IP address at any point of time in the network. So you need to design for such accidental things. Okay, I'll help you with that at a later time. Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Any other
Stanley, I
questions
have a
from anyone?
question. When will
Yeah, yeah.
the
Hmm.
yeah, Stanley, when will the dynamic IP address will be released? In which cases the dynamic IP will be released? If
Okay.
you shut down the server for one hour,
If you are
maybe 15
yeah,
days,
if
20
you are
days like that.
yeah, correct. If you are having your VM powered off for a longer duration, then there is a lease time on your DHCP server. All right. So once after the lease time is
Yes,
completed,
yes.
automatically that IP will be assigned to any other machine that is getting newly created. So if you want to avoid such cases, you can go and configure static IP address.
Okay.
So yeah, if your VM is down for a longer duration, then your IPs will change. Yeah, your IPs will get released. Otherwise, if you are
Is
just
there
doing a
any
normal
default
reboot,
DHCP release time?
yeah, if you are just doing a normal reboot or a normal
Okay,
routine
that's
maintenance,
okay.
your IPs will not be released. Yeah, so your IPs will not be released. And again,
Okay,
if you
okay.
are moving your virtual machine from one host to another host, sometimes if it is going to a different network VLAN or something like that, then again IP address will change. Okay, so but again, there is no clear documentation from Microsoft. Even you can go and give it a check that what is the least time best practice that they are following. Maybe they are just following 8 hours possibly. Okay, but that is my assumption. Okay, but maybe there might be some more difference in terms of leasing.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks.
So no worries, team. Okay, so just start practicing along with me. So I've given you access to the materials. Okay, so whenever you start getting some time, start creating the resources. You don't have to get into the level of details that we have been discussing today. You can just start practicing some basic things: how to create a resource group, how to create a virtual machine. So you'll have labs for each of those step-by-step instruction. Okay, but I mean, you don't have to start it today. Maybe once after the Diwali time is over, because like anyways you are going to spend some time with family during those 3 days, right? So if you are creating it now, you will lose 3 days in that. Maybe you can create a new account after your Diwali vacation, so that you can practice continuously for 30 days with this account. Okay, so any final questions before we wind up for the day?
Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, but there is a lot of disturbance in your line.
Okay, sorry.
Deepak, you can use the chat window if in case you want to ask something. I can.
Now it's fine?
It is fine. I can listen to you. Go ahead and ask it. Let's see.
Actually, related to that particular server creation in cloud environment, so static IP would be required, right? For the industry purpose, it is like that.
Yeah.
If I'm going with the DSCP or like that, IP always been changing, right? It will be impacting to the application.
Correct. So mostly yes, if you want to have your application with static IP address, always go and configure the network interface with the static IP address that on how I showed. Okay, always you should have IP address with static configuration if your application is demanding that. If you are changing it frequently, then the connectivity will be impacted. Then it is not going to be good, right? So yeah, whatever application is business critical, if it is needing static IP address, go and configure static IP address. Don't have dynamic IP address for those. Yeah, it's a best practice to have static IP address for some of your business critical application. Yes.
Or you can change the IP address, right? If I creating
Yeah,
the
you can
DSCP.
change it. You can change it. See, if that IP address is not used in any of the system, you can go and change it. See, I can save it now. So it will go and change the IP address. This IP address will never get released until I go and delete this virtual machine and interface. This 10.0.0.4 will be always there for that particular application server.
But Stanley, this is a private IP address, right? But when you're
Even
showing
for
the
your
demo
public IP
previously, it was
address,
public. Yeah.
no, even for your public IP address, you can go and reserve it. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, but I'm just saying, okay, so there are two concepts always for your public and private. In AWS also, they call it as elastic IP, right? That is the permanent public IP. So yeah, so you can have permanent IP address for both public as well as private. How to take image of my laptop? Oh yes, let us know, or Google. You have a lot of tools are available, like clone tools for taking your image of your laptop, like double take, or there are a lot of tools, but again it's not very relevant here, right? So I'll stop the recording. Okay,